Peace and welcome to Atlantis Build Talk Radio, the premier station for 5% Nation of Gods and Earth social commentary, interviews, musicology, and uncensored discussions about the science of everything in life. This station is a subsidiary of Asia and the Atlantis School for Gifted Youngsters at www.atlantischool.blogspot.com and Asia TV at YouTube/Quanaya. QUANAAH.
Peace and welcome to another edition of Atlantis Build Talk Radio. I'm your host, SaladinAllah. And today I wanted to reflect upon an initiative that I put forward 3 years ago on the winter solstice date of December 21st, 2021. I was able to successfully register the elements of our universal flag of the 5% as a Class 41 licensed trademark with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office and Customs and Border Protection. And if you wanted more details about that entire initiative and how it was received, I would encourage you to read the article, What Are the Legalities of the Universal Flag? I'm going to put a link in the description of this episode. And if you wanted to just go to Google and type in what are the legalities of the universal flag and put hashtag Atlantis Build or my name, SaladinAllah, and it will take you directly to the website to read that article. Today, I just wanted to reflect upon the time of that experience, what has happened since that, and then what we could expect to see, I think, moving forward. When I first announced that initiative, it was embraced with a great deal of support and attacked with disdain from some nation members. Some of the nation members shared that I was wrong for not including them personally or for not sharing it with a large general body of 5%ers collectively for input before actually acquiring this IP. Now, IP is short for intellectual property, and that's exactly what a trademark or a patent is. It's intellectual property. These things were definitely considered, yet I decided against sharing it with some people personally, and then also just a general body of people. It only exacerbated that number of people that really didn't know what was going on. I also did it in the interest of time. There had to be a sense of urgency with doing this. It takes about a year for you to register a trademark. And then I wanted to prompt an immediate call to action by a national response from our members, not based upon an idea, but something that you actually have in your possession. So instead of talking about this as an idea, I made the proactive decision to be about it by investing the time and finances to secure the trademark for us. When I received the official document from the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office on December 21st, 2021, it's hard to really describe and express the prideful feeling of bringing it to our people to say, here, this is an invaluable asset that I acquired for us to advance our nation. And while some members appreciated the social economic foresight in securing this IP, others did not. Following the successful registration of this trademark on December 21st, I sent out a January 7th email titled Universal Flag Board to various 5%ers, men and women, in different regions across the country. As shown in that email, I sought out a diverse group of 5%ers, men and women, to form a committee that the trademark ownership will be transferred to manage for our nation. This never ended up happening, and what unfortunately followed was mass confusion, misinformation campaigns, and I would say a fumbled bag by nation members to secure this invaluable national asset to legally protect our cultural identity in the public domain. It was disappointing then, and it's still disappointing to see the same nation members unable to publicly defend themselves and secure our financial future. I ultimately learned a lot from that experience, especially around the idea of organization. When striving to organize any group of people for any idea, there usually exists some element that can stymie the group's ability to build. Stymie means to present an obstacle to or to stand in the way of. Sometimes this obstruction is rooted in legitimate concerns for the safety, welfare, and progress of the group, as we oftentimes saw demonstrated by the sharp-witted Stymie from the Little Rascals who helped solve his gang's problems. Sometimes folks are not like Stymie, and their obstruction is illegitimate, thus undermining the safety, welfare, and progress of the group. Whether it's legitimate or illegitimate, everyone has a rationalization behind why they choose to support or not support an idea. In presenting our nation with an actual registered trademark, something tangible, not just an idea, it forced many of our people to communicate their rationalizations and confront their own contributions, role, and responsibilities to our nation. It was not the fact that what I did for us was inherently wrong, because every pioneer, innovation, or invention is oftentimes viewed as wrong by some of the people who never did it before. For many people, this was the first time that they even thought about what it means to officially register the elements of our universal flag as a licensed trademark. Most people honestly did not even know what we had in our possession. Many didn't even know the difference between a trademark, a copyright, or a patent. And it was obvious when they used the words interchangeably, trying to present themselves as knowledgeable to explain their stance. Some people even unrealistically argued that if Walmart or any other company were selling products with our universal flag on it, we should just find them and teach them. Yeah, some people legitimately said that. They didn't even know if the company was based in China, Taiwan, anywhere, but their conclusion to resolve this situation was to find them and teach them. Others protested by saying far-fetched things like, we're not under the government, universal sham God didn't do it, do you think you're smarter than him? It doesn't matter, the universal flag is for everybody, and a bunch of illegitimate reasons why we were not the ones who should actually own what is ours. It was evident that these rationalizations that people made to justify why they did not want ownership of this invaluable asset were not legitimate and clearly motivated by something a lot deeper. In order to support this initiative, some folks had to justify in their minds why they and others, including the universal flag designer himself, Universal Sham God, never did it before. For some folks, it was simple. We are at a point in our nation's history where we simply need to own it. For others, it was not that simple at all. They had to justify a lot in their minds to accept this gift from me. Some people were simply mad that they didn't do it first. And to accept it was to acknowledge my contribution and give me credit for doing it first, even though this was for all of us. Some people were never going to acknowledge it, especially those who always had and still have something negative to say about me privately and publicly. Some folks felt like me acquiring the IP was me looking down on them and saying that they just didn't have the intelligence or skills to do it on their own until I came along, which was not true. To them, they would rather starve than to eat what was being shared with them. All of them experienced some level of cognitive dissonance or the discomfort of holding contradictory thoughts. For many, those contradictory thoughts were, number one, we own our universal flag. But the contradictory thought was proof that we don't legally own the universal flag because I got the registered trademark for us. For some, they struggle with even more contradictory thoughts. None of what I'm sharing right now is mind reading or speculation. I'm not making any of this up. People actually shared these kind of thoughts privately and publicly with me when this initiative was shared with them. With all of these things going on in some people's minds, some folks came up with a whole bunch of illegitimate reasons why they did not want this for our nation. These kinds of rationalizations are called defense mechanisms in the world of psychiatry. They're psychological strategies that people use to avoid certain thoughts or actions that they feel are unwanted. Now, what would actually be unwanted about an initiative like this? Number one, me doing this for us. The only legitimate reason that I actually heard from people is that collectively, as a nation, we're just not ready for this level of responsibility to represent and protect ourselves in the public domain as legal owners of this IP because we just did not know what we actually had. I anticipated this, and that's the reason that I secured it first so that we had it in our possession as opposed to going around talking to people about something we ain't have. To me, it was better to actually have it in our possession and learn how to use it as opposed to not having it and sitting back watching people continually use it. Some folks accuse me of doing things backwards because I did it that way. I knew all about trademarks. I did it. And then I shared the best part with others. That's knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. I knew all about it, which is knowledge. I did it, which is wisdom. And I shared it as the best part for our nation, which is understanding. Others who knew nothing about possessing a registered trademark felt like I forced them to do things wisdom knowledge, which is also untrue. All they needed to do now is invest time in learning more about what was in their possession and how to use it for the benefit of our nation. That's also knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. Learn more about it, which is knowledge, how to use it, which is wisdom, for the benefit of our nation, which is understanding. They were in a perfect position to learn more about what they now legally owned and how it could be used for our nation. Not that day, weeks, or even months later. It could have been a year to that date that folks finally educated themselves enough about owning this invaluable asset and how to actually use it. Knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. 2021 was a pivotal moment in our nation's history. It was post-COVID. We were displaced from our community, as I shared in my article, Anchor Institutions and the Fate of a Law School in Mecca. We were poorly represented in the public domain and facing dire social economic circumstances. At the date of this episode, all of these things have only gotten worse, and no one has come forward with any tangible idea that addresses all of these national issues. I think failing to accept ownership of this registered trademark was a missed opportunity for us to use this invaluable asset to legally protect our image and narrative in the public domain, improve our collective quality of life, and create multi-capital for our nation's growth and development in perpetuity. And perpetuity simply means forever, because once you own this trademark, you just simply have to register it periodically forever. I would love for someone or others to come along and legitimately prove me otherwise. Not with economic development presentation pitches with no capital investment, or crochet crown and lapel pin fundraisers, or even live stream podcast monologues people are calling classes. I mean, I commend folks for doing something, yet none of these things are legitimately moving the needle forward for our nation. If they were, we would see the evidence in the actual attendance, participation, financial investment, and viewership. Unfortunately, we don't see any of that evidence. And no, I'm not sitting here looking at myself as the nation's savior on some high horse to solve all of our nation's problems. I'm just one person who shared an excellent idea that would have surely solved some of our problems. 3 years later, how have we actually benefited from not owning this registered trademark? And I can honestly say that I can't find one legitimate example. And I think moving forward, what we're going to legitimately see are people who are more seriously invested in the destiny of our nation. And that is going to require us to think outside of a religious, limited box of not only how we see ourselves, but how we see our future generations, especially in the public domain owning the narrative and the identity of who we say that we are. Peace. Yeah, sometimes I just sit back and analyze tracks through a lens living right and exact. Where the lie at? This new menticide makes the social order die. I ride for a coven with that root word love. Got this muse in my life that'll make a good wife and write bestsellers from a wine cellar. These words are poetry. Appears the dark chambers of a heart immaculately me. In fact, I strive to be a sense of stability within the raging sea so the captives can be free. It's deep, I'm solid as concrete. Cobblestone roads where folklore is told and not sold. Had to check my sensibilities. Room to adjust, to balance the dawn and the dusk. It don't cost much.
The more we push for our own unique individual freedom, the more we will come under the domination and oppression of others as a group. There is no ultimate individual freedom, ladies and gentlemen, if there is not group freedom. Individual freedom is made possible by group freedom and by group power. It is the power of the group that provides room for individual expression. Powerless groups do not have individual expression and are not perceived as individuals. If you want to get the maximum of individual expression and freedom, you must maximize your group power and strength in the world.